Good afternoon. I'm Andrea McKenzie, and I'm here today with creative writer Melanie Fishbane to chat about her very exciting new book, MAUD, a novel inspired by the life of Ellen Montgomery. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'm really excited to do this for the Ellen Montgomery Institute. As you know, it's an organization that's close to my heart, so this is great.
Excellent.
Thank you for doing it.
So, to tell you a bit about Melanie, she has an MFA in Writing for Children and Young Adults from the Vermont College of Fine Arts and an MA in History from Concordia University here in Canada. She teaches English at Humber College, is a social media consultant, and has lectured internationally in children's literature. So Melanie, congratulations on this imaginative and creative first novel.
Thank you so much.
And I understand it's being released on April 25th.
That is correct.
At which point we will all be able to read it.
Yes, that's the idea. And I hope that people will want to read it, and that is when you can get it, yeah.
Well, the nice thing is, I already have.
I hope so, because you're asking me questions, so.
Yes. Of course. Beginning to ending, plus all the notes, all the references, and the bibliography.
Excellent.
So, to begin with, this novel is, as its subtitle says, inspired by the life of world-famous Canadian author Ellen Montgomery, author of Anne of Green Gables and many other books, as we know. To begin with, would you please tell us something about the book?
So the book covers her teen years from ages 14 to 17 and explores her journey to accepting her ambition to be a writer and to go to school and to actually even get her grandparents to accept the idea that this is something she wanted to do, which would have been completely against most late 19th century Victorian ideas about what women should do.
And what were some of those expectations?
Well, the domestic world, right? To find a good husband and get married and have children. And I think it's not that she didn't want those things, but she had other ideas that she wanted to do before she settled down and got married. And she wanted, her biggest goal was to be a published writer. And so the novel explores this and the conflict that emerges because of that. And there are a couple boys that, of course, are showing us interest in her, and so she has to sort of deal with that and what that's about, first love. And, she goes to Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, to see her father for a year. So the novel explores the Canadian West during this period, and
Okay. So, what inspired you to write this particular book?
It was actually a combination of factors. So, Penguin Canada and the heirs of Ellen Montgomery had actually wanted to do something that would reach a new audience, bring Ellen Montgomery to a new audience. And so I was approached because of my ties to the Ellen Montgomery community and because I write young adult fiction to put together something that might speak to this. I had actually done my MA in children's literature and is writing historical fiction for kids. And so it wasn't something that I hadn't thought of doing at one point, but this felt like it was the best symmetry of bringing all these things together. And the thing is about her teen years, it is a period that hasn't been explored very much. And so it felt like a really wonderful opportunity to kind of dive into this teen Maud, see who she really was. This is before anything. So who is that girl? How did she get to be the one who writes Anne of Green Gables? Where are the seedlings? And I thought that would be a really interesting thing to explore.
And so you show us.
Thank you.
Through the book.
Thank you.
One of the interesting things I find about even the title of the book is it's MAUD, a novel inspired by the life of Ellen Montgomery. And so this is a creative interpretation of a real person. It also includes her family, her friends, the events of her life, her relationships, and so on and so forth. But what are the challenges of writing a novel about an actual person, especially one as famous as Ellen Montgomery?
Well, as I indicated even in the author's note, is that everyone has an idea about who she is, right?
Right.
Everyone has their ideal of Anne and Maud and how connected the two of them are. some people say, maybe it's Emily and Maud, however, that is. And Montgomery also encouraged this idea that, her life was connected to her experiences, her real life experiences, and so people do make these direct connections a lot. And so I wanted to be sympathetic to that, but I also needed to kind of see, tell the character story in the most authentic way I could. And I read the journals, and I read her letters to Penzie, and I looked at all the material, and then at some point I had to sort of pull back so I could find her voice and let that speak, and tell her story, which I hope people will appreciate the interpretation and know that it is, and I think it's important that people know that it is fiction. Right. But what I did try to do, it was really important to me that whatever arc I did made sense. Like she wasn't gonna, run off somewhere that didn't make any sense.
Right.
Right.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
So Montgomery also left us her life story in her own journals. Did you find that helpful, or was that a hindrance?
A little bit of both, right? So the thing about the journals is she leaves a lot of questions unanswered, so then I'm all like, oh, that's where the story is, right?
Yes.
A decision was made for me to go to Prince Albert. I'm like, a decision was made? How did this decision come about? Mm-hmm. What were the circumstances involved in that? It's not really ever explained, and even later on, later on in the journals, it's never really explained. So I'm like, that's an opportunity to tell a story, right? So different kinds of things like that. Other times, the journals are very contradictory. At one point she's like, in terms of even the boyfriends, right? Nate is detestable, I hate his kisses, and then later in life, she's all nostalgic about him. Mm-hmm. And I started wondering, does she doth protest too much? What is going on? And because she does rewrite them later in life,
of course.
We've all had things. I have journals from when I'm 14, and I'm not sure I want anyone to ever look at them. So I can just imagine, I'm about the age where she started, I think, to revise things. So I think there's something to be said about that. What she didn't want to say, or maybe the questions she left unanswered, that gives us a chance to explore.
So Mel, you make us realize through your interpretation just how many challenges Maud has to overcome to actually find herself and her identity as a writer.
Right.
So family attitudes, gender expectations for young ladies at the time, and her own self-doubts.
Right.
And at one powerful point in the novel, she even burns her own diaries. And I see that as a key event in the first part of the novel. Mm-hmm. Could you perhaps tell us more about that moment and its meaning and how you arrived at it?
Sure. So, we know at the beginning of the first journal that we have, she talks about burning the one that she's kept since she was 9, right? Mm-hmm. So, and she says, it's just musings about the weather, and so she burns it. And I had to start to wonder if that was really true. I mean, it seems a little flippant in an attitude. And a wise friend suggested that in fiction we find our truths. And so I went back into the fiction to see things, and in Emily, when her work is discovered,
yes,
that is a big moment, and she burns it, right? So I started to think about that, and I started to think about, under what circumstances would she at 14 decide to really burn it? And I wanted to create also this emotional moment where she had to sort of break from who she was and where she was going. And also this idea that we always try to keep finding who Montgomery actually is, and that we don't always necessarily know. And so that idea, and I just have the vision of her, the character essentially burning it and basically being like, no one's ever going to know the real me anyway.
I noticed that no one, I believe the line reads something along the lines of, no one shall know the secrets of my heart.
Yeah, no one will know the true secret of my heart.
Yes, I was almost right.
You were almost right, yes.
Very good. That's nice to know that it stuck in your head.
You're testing me.
That's fine. Yeah.
I was also interested in another moment in the book,
Mhm.
and this is just before Maud begins her journey to Prince Albert.
Yeah.
You mentioned the word journey before, and I see this journey as not just geographical, but also, of course, of finding herself,
Mhm.
developing herself.
Mm-hmm.
But on the eve of that journey, Maud's grandmother gives her Maud's mother's commonplace book.
Yeah.
And she has never had anything of her mother's before, and her mother is rarely spoken of. I was curious about whether that book actually exists
Mm-hmm.
and what it represents.
So the book does exist. It actually is in the archives at the University of Guelph, in the Ellen Montgomery collection there. I stumbled upon it when I was looking through all of the materials. I actually don't know when she received it. The journal seemed to indicate that she never had anything of her mother's. So then I saw this commonplace book, and so I'm like, when would this have happened? And so I fictionalized. It seemed like a wonderful opportunity to share a moment between Maud and her grandmother, because I wanted to show that there was some softness in their relationship. And also her grandmother's grief over the loss of her daughter. I felt like that was really important. What I also noticed in those pages was that there was what could be interpreted as young Maud's or Montgomery's handwriting. And so, or Montgomery's handwriting. And so I thought that it's a possibility. See, for fiction, you can kind of do this kind of thing, right? As an historian, you sort of would need probably some more substantial information. But I thought there was moments where she's communing with her mother through words. And I also wanted to sort of set up this idea that Maud and her mother are much more alike than we understand, or that even she understands in this, and that becomes sort of a theme that is later developed in the novel too. So it becomes sort of it's a representation of her and her past and her connection to her mother, also her connection to her writing.
Yes. And I found it an especially interesting moment because of the relationship between the three women.
Exactly.
Because there is frequent conflict with her grandmother, but as you said, these moments of softness and of sympathy, and also a connection among women.
Exactly. Which I think is such a big theme in Montgomery's writing. I mean, her novels are about women and community. So I definitely wanted to make sure that my novel somehow reflected that in some way.
Yes, of course, I can see that.